On today's Locked On Twins, we will talk about a big win. We will talk about a story that came out about why the Twins use Platoons. Short answer, because they work. And some news and notes as we get you through yet another baseball day. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren, and you can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And doing the Monster Mash across the screen for me, if you're not watching on YouTube, I highly recommend it. Mr. Dave Brown at Answer Dave Brown on the tweets. Dave, what's up?
I hear we've only got, maybe hours left of that theme song, and there's a new theme song coming, so I wanted to dance while someone was watching. While I could.
Yeah. And we'll hit you all up with our news and no's here. I said, in the original open, I said news and no's, and then I just stared at the screen for 4 seconds, which is like an eternity in podcasting. But Dave laughed so hard he started coughing and wasn't muted. And it's a whole big thing. We'll talk about it another time. But again, thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, of course. And also as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we're your team every day. Fun stuff coming up. We did an AL Central preview episode with myself and 3 other AL Central hosts. As you might know, we are in the process of picking up a White Sox host. So I wouldn't say we bullied the concept of the White Sox, but we definitely talked a lot about them with regards to who would bring up the cellar. But today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. And Dave, we are on the heels of, I guess if you want to call it that, the Twins winning a crosstown matchup between them and the Red Sox, 7-1. And a lot of things to touch on here. Joe Ryan, tinkering as he's been, has a pretty solid outing, 3 innings, a strikeout, an earned run. Matt Cantorino does his thing with a couple of strikeouts. Probably would have a better chance of making a team in most normal years. But again, a lot of pressure to put on a guy who's been hurt for quite some time now. Joan Duran, Justin Topa. More strikeouts today than there were yesterday. Let's just say that much. But Twins jump all over Cooper Criswell and actually score runs off 4 of the 5 pitchers they see. I know you were especially impressed by Jair Camargo. I'm not sure I'm saying it right. But basically the third catcher in this 2-catcher system. And he had a double. And then he had a homer off Cam Boozer, which sounds like a graduate of St. Cloud State, but is actually a former Twins prospect and probably would be better off with the Brewers. But you want to talk about Camargo, and obviously the year he had last year put him on the radar. I don't know that the Twins are still actively shopping Christian Vasquez, but I think Camargo could really factor into this catching situation even without such a trade, because catchers get hurt. It just happens.
He might be, and he is listed. I know Keith Law had him toward the end of his prospect list, maybe 27th, I think. But he's not on the on MLB Pipeline, and I meant to look at Baseball America and other places. I'm not sure if he's up there either. He seems like the best Twins prospect who's not considered a prospect. He's like 24 years old. He slugged over 500 last year, and after May 1st, I think it was like 580. And he's got a good defensive reputation. I think he threw out a quarter of the base stealers in the minor leagues, so he's active back there behind the plate. He's from Colombia. Won't you please welcome? But I think I don't know if you can trade Christian Vasquez or if there's a market for him or what, kind of like how you said. But if Vasquez has another year, or it looks like he's going to have another season like he did last year, which was not good, the Twins have a real super option The team across the river is St. Paul is loaded with depth, with Twins depth, and he looks like a pretty good option to me to be a helpful major league player once the Twins need him at some point.
Yeah, and if we're realistic, a major league team going a full season using only 2 catchers is, I mean, it's not on par with, wasn't it the 01 Mariners who used 5 starters for the whole season? I think I saw someone tweet that the other day, like Codify, or I don't know.
Somebody did tweet it. That's true. So
somebody said it was the first time since like 1904. And then the fun fact was that Jamie Moyer was in both of those rotations.
Hey-o.
Hey-o.
But so that's wild that it was like 100 years apart. That didn't seem right to me. That didn't seem possible, but I don't know. But the point is that yes, it is rare for a team to get through a season without. And the Twins have had, I don't know if the Twins have had like bad luck with catchers, but somebody usually gets hurt or something at some point. So
well,
they're maybe because that was the catcher was Mitch Garver there for a number of years, but so yeah, it's good. It's good to have the depth, but I think Camargo looks like when I say total package, like not in a Carlton Fisk kind of way, but a guy who can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and, Lex Luger.
Yeah, maybe not even in that way, but
yeah,
a viable, helpful major league ball player. So I'm kind of interested in seeing him. And a guy who I wonder if he could. If Jeffers doesn't do well for whatever reason, you could put him back there all the time and be okay with it.
Yeah, no question about it. Back to that rotation thing, part of it could be just that 5-man rotations didn't become a big deal until,
I was thinking that, yes.
Early 90s, late 80s. I don't even know when it would be technically.
Yeah. Well, I would say the 80s, probably. And they at least had like a 4.5-man rotation where, the swing man would do some work. But yeah, in the olden days, in the old Hoss Radbourne, Tungsten Armo Doyle days, you'd have a negative 1-man rotation. It would just, I don't know how it would work. It would be like some kind of spatial anomaly would pitch every game. And they that's how they got away with not paying anybody. Cause it was
and when did they go from 24-man roster to 25? Cause I think
1990, I want to say.
Well, because there was some weirdness with the number of players due to collusion, wasn't there? I think that was
it was a lockout. I think it was they started the 90 season kind of late, or they were locked out of spring training for a while. This is going way back, and I have not studied, but as I recall, that was the year that they went from 24 to 25 because of the shenanigans of the owners. Imagine that.
Yeah, the more things change, the more they stay the same, including ownerships getting older and richer. But Edouard Julien with a 3-run homer in the third. Oh, by the way, before we get back into that, do you know the Jair/Johan Camargo dust-up that happened last year?
There was a Camargo on Camargo violence?
A Camargo embargo as they met in Fargo. No, so what happened was, and I think it was Aaron Gleeman tweeted, that the Twins had signed Johan Camargo of former Braves fame, third baseman, no on-base percentage with some pop.
Camargo shorts, as I call him.
To
know it doesn't work really as a thing, but I call him that anyway.
Oh, I think it works if people know you very well. But so it showed up on the transaction wire that the Twins had signed Johan Camargo, but it was actually the other J Camargo, Jair Camargo. And so actually, I believe Camargo had been a minor league free agent, got re-signed instead of being added to the 40. Nevertheless, it's a long way of saying that they could have lost a really good player that went to minor league free agency, came back, and was tremendous last year. But for a brief minute there, the Camargo situation was, and this is a Twins fan thing every year in the winter, is this guy the starting blank? And it was like, oh, Johan Camargo, is this guy the starting third baseman? And it's like, come on, be real. And they did it with
Oh, I see. Yes,
Tim Beckham.
they signed some guy minor league deal or whatever, and they're like, "This is who they're getting to play."
And there was
Yeah.
like 4 hours of discourse before it came out that it was not even Johan Camargo. So the things we do online just to keep ourselves entertained.
I'd like for them also to sign for further confusion. I'd like them to sign Jair Jurgens, the pitcher,
The Brave.
and just confuse the hell out of everybody even more.
I'm game. Let's take a quick second. We have a new sponsor to give some love to, so we'll give them some of that. And then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Twins roughing up the Red Sox in the Crosstown Series. Got some moves to talk about, our retirement, and a bunch of other fun stuff. So stick with us, and we'll be right back. Well, Fire TV, it's Amazon Fire TV, and they are your destination for sports. From live games, highlights, in-depth analysis, you name it, they've got it. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV, a dumb TV if you ask me, that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball, which is coming up sooner than we believe, or the college basketball tournament, which is also coming up quickly, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes us at Locked On Sports and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports. So March Madness, NBA, MLB, much more. NFL free agency coming up here. You name it, they've got it. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well. So you can check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and your Alexa devices. But if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this one. To learn more, visit amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. Now we're coming out of our first break, and we see the Twins 7-1 victory. Again, Jair Camargo with a huge game, couple extra base hits. RBIs from Margot, Wallner, Camargo, and Julien. Julien with a 3-run homer. And then at the same time shows why he really doesn't ever get to play against lefties with pretty pitiful at bat against Boozer. Transition there, hard transition. Good story in The Athletic from our friend Aaron Gleeman on Platoons. And the long and short of it is, no matter how much it ticks off your uncle who lives in Prior Lake or Andover or Bemidji, the Twins are going to platoon. It's what they're good at. It's what works. And so even if Kyle Farmer strikes out against Joe Mantiply, it does not mean that the platoons don't work. Please stop making things have to work 100% of the time to be viable. Now, with that,
but if only they got more 300 or 400 more at bats against left-handers, then they could do it. I swear. Just
especially when you're giving away those plate appearances in games that you need to win. Like you can't.
Not a bad point.
Yeah. By the way, I want to see where is David Goforth? Is he with the Brewers? Is that a name with the Brewers?
All I know is you just said Joe Mantiply, so I've got Goforth and Mantiply in my head.
That's exactly where I was. We are on. I tweeted that a long time ago. Like I would do a fantasy baseball name Goforth and Mantiply. Even if it's not how you say them correctly, it doesn't matter to me.
Isn't it? How would you say it's not Goforth? I know it's Mantiply.
Then it is. I don't know. I assumed it was. I don't usually question these things. I just don't like having egg on my face if I'm wrong.
That's if you get egg on your face, just eat it.
Yep.
Joe Mantiply, NL All-Star, so he's run into some problems lately, but he's a human. He's a real.
Not with the law, but with pitching, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying like he, has gotten behind in his rent or anything or
jaywalking.
No, none of that. No, I mean he's not pitching that well because he's getting old, I guess.
Yep, that happens. So Edouard Julien looking good. Twins offense again showing its depth across multiple levels. Carlos Santana picking up a couple hits. Again, as we've said, the vibes, they are good. Even so much so that former Twins prospect Mark Contreras picked up 2 hits, and Rob Ref Schneider, or as I call him, Ref Rob Schneider, picked up a hit as well. So the former Twins were getting in on the act as well. It was quite a big day at the Yard for your Twins and Twins adjacent former players.
Rob Ref Schneider getting the hits in spring training, trying to make the squad.
Did you ever see that meme that I did though? Terrible, terrible, terrible. If anybody knows about my Photoshop, I call it Photochop because it's much worse. But I just copied Rob Schneider's face onto a hockey referee's body, and it was Ref Rob Schneider. And it actually kind of took off. Like somebody actually asked me for the meme like 10 days ago. And like I had to go into the vault. I had to find it. We're talking a couple of years ago already. It's nice to have somebody remember my fine work.
You're much more talented than everybody says.
I don't want to know who you've been talking to, but Twins reassign a few guys to minor league camp as well. Randy Dobnak, Ronnie Enriquez, Ryan Jensen, Hovani Moran, Aaron Sabato, Deshaun Kiersey Jr., Alex Isola, and Pat Winkle. A few things. I don't really understand. I don't know if they have to formally send Moran over there. They did invite him to spring training, but he's out for the year. So the player movement on his front is a formality. Couple things, though. Moving 2 catchers at this time in the spring. A lot of times they'll keep extra catchers around just for guys who can catch bullpens. Yeah. But honestly, also, you don't need to be on the roster for that. I guess you can come across from the minor league side or whatever. It's all informal. It's all at the same place. But not too many surprises here. Dobnak now is a well-paid non-roster guy. He's going to really have to fight to get back to the big leagues. Enriquez is interesting, but just too many relievers right now. And Sabato, former first-round pick. Curious what's going to become of him. Deshaun Kiersey's a toolsy outfielder who looks like he could be something. And then, like I said, a couple catchers. Jensen, another reliever flyer. Nobody too surprising here.
Well, it's I'm perfectly fine. I mean, it isn't my money, but I'm perfectly fine with Dobnak, getting paid major league money to be a minor league player when before, he had to have like extra jobs to put food in his mouth. So I think that's the rare justice, if you will, served well. So I hopefully he'll, for his sake, he'll keep pitching well and at least have a career with the Saints. And if not, come back to the Twins at some point. And I'm happy for him that he's got some security. So Forza.
Let's come full circle on this platoon thing, because I guess I realized I took a sharp turn, but basically, it comes down to Kyle Farmer's better against lefties than Edouard Julien is, and those plate appearances, while small samples, and if Kyle Farmer goes 0 for 10 in a row against lefties, that looks bad for platooning, but the data has backed it up basically since the dawn of baseball time. Earl Weaver talked about it in his book that's now 40 years old, which is hard to believe. Tom Kelly did it. Sam Mealy did it. There is ample evidence that platooning works. It's why it's used widely. And it's honestly just kind of sad when people complain about it now, because it's just the way the game works. It's not.
It is sort of funny that people complain about it. It's one of those things where you would have thought that we would have sort of like a weed or some kind of vermin eradicated that line of thinking that it doesn't work. It's some of the it's funny. It's some of the oldest analytics in baseball history. I mean, that's what I don't even know if they really had. If they looked at it from a statistical standpoint, they just kind of looked at it physically and said, well, these southpaws are coming at you on the left-hand side, and that makes it hard to see the ball. And all, that's all true. It's
ugly swings too,
Yes. Yeah. The eye test, and, maybe they added the stats up too, but and Aaron Gleeman did a really good job of explaining mostly without being condescending, to, I think he wasn't trying to be, but
yeah,
it was sort of like, I was getting a feeling, and maybe this is my own biases or my own thinking coming through. It was like, why don't you people understand what it is I'm writing? there was like a subtext there that
I'm
it's like, I shouldn't have to write this. If you're a baseball fan, you should understand this by now. See, I'm being condescending, but that's okay.
Well, when we come back, I want to defend Aaron and talk. I want to unpack that because there is something there that I think I'm noticing that you will, as this season goes on. So I guess if you catch my drift, understand. But let's give some love to PrizePicks. When we come back, we will wrap up that discussion and a couple different news and notes to bring us home tonight. PrizePicks is North America's largest daily fantasy sports platform. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you and the numbers. You don't have to beat anybody else. Instead of battling thousands of other players, you pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat categories and projections and watch the winnings roll in. Now, if you are a risk taker like Dave Brown, or if you're risk averse like me, actually, I think those are probably the opposite, or maybe both of us are risk averse. They have something called Demons and Goblins. Demon picks are marked in red, and they're scary. They'll accelerate your heartbeat because you can win big money, as in 100 times your money. So if you bet $10 on a demon and it's 100 times, that's $1,000. That's easy math. Even I can figure that out. But if you're cautious, you can always choose a goblin pick marked green because it's designed to keep you in the green and allow you to land consistent victories. The payout is less than a demon pick, but your chances of keeping your winning streak going are obviously much higher. If you're into the NBA, you can pick more than or less than on everything from 3-pointers to turnovers committed. And for spring training baseball, you can pick more than or less than on pitcher strikeouts, first inning runs, so on and so forth. So download the app today and enter code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's code LOCKEDONMLB. It's all one word, all lowercase letters, and get that first deposit match up to $100. Join PrizePicks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. No, I'm defending Aaron because it reminds me of a reel that I watched where a little boy asks his mom I think he says, "Why did the chicken cross the road?" And she's like, "I have no idea." And he goes, "Because." Stupid.
Man. Was that little boy you? Because that sounds like something that you'd pull.
It really does, if I'm honest. It really, really, really does. Basically, for whatever reason, the fan mentality in Minnesota is that whatever the team does, it's because they're morons. Rocco Baldelli, bald dummy. They call him bald dummy, whatever. Like it's such low effort, low rent trolling, and like comedy is not for everyone because it's not funny. It's like the people who say championship every time a guy signs a minor league deal. I'm like, nobody in human history has ever laughed at that. However, everyone views it as like, yeah, these guys are so dumb. They do all these things that never work, ignoring the fact that the Twins last year were successful. 2019, they were phenomenal. 2020, they were great. And Twins fans just view everything through that spectrum of negativity. And I don't mean all Twins fans. It's Twins fans as an understood entity. But for me, it's lazy analysis. It's a lazy way to watch the game. Because if you watch baseball and you're constantly negative about everything, of course you're going to be right. 2019s don't win the World Series. 7 out of 10 times you don't get on base. 4 out of 6 times you lose if you're still a dang good baseball team. To me, negative as a personality is not meaningful analysis, but you're going to find that is in ample form in Twins territory.
Yeah, and I did detect some pushback from the writer on that. Almost kind of how I said before, like, folks, you don't need to trust me, but you do need to use some critical thinking skills. And nobody likes to hear. And still, I saw, and it's maybe a common denominator type thing, but I still saw replies in conversations about the article. It's like, yeah, I used some good examples, but I still think that
how many of them had Vikings avatars? This is a very important.
That might have been one. Yeah, I still think if we just used these left-handed batters every day for 4 homestands in a row, that they'd eventually learn how to hit lefties. And Aaron even brought up how as they come up in the minor leagues, they do get their plate appearances against left-handers, and sometimes they get better. but usually they're never good enough to overcome like the platoon situation that the Twins have with Julian and Farmer at second base.
Yep.
And there was one other thing about that article that I wanted to bring up that I don't think Aaron went into, at least for one position, and that's the second base deal. Defensively, Farmer is a better defensive player than Julian is at this time, and he's one of the better defensive players on the team. If Julian were as good or significantly better than Farmer at playing defense at second base, then it would maybe make sense for him to hang in there a little bit sometimes against left-handed pitching. But there's two factors there that show me that Farmer should be getting those at bats and that time at second base, because he's better in a couple different ways. Yeah, most of the time you're going to face right-handed pitching, and Julian's going to be out there, and it's going to be fine. But there really is some nuance to this game, and some there's multiple reasons why Baldelli plays it the way he does, and the Twins are better for it. The Twins wouldn't be as good of a team if they didn't take advantage of a Farmer against left-handed pitching, or they didn't use him at second base because he's a good defensive player. It doesn't make a lot of sense to go against those things.
Vikings avatars are the sunglass avatar of Minnesota sports Twitter. I'm just letting you know that right now.
What have the Vikings done?
Right. That's what's funny. And I do that all the time. Vikings fans talking about Twins being choke artists. I'm like, my brother in Christ, you publicly show your fandom for the Vikings. What are you even talking about? But anyway, I digress. Kind of hard to believe, too, that this is year 6 of Rocco Baldelli. Like, they have come full circle in a lot of different ways. Good years, bad years, playoff wins, playoff losses. It's quite a ride.
It's not every day that a baseball team has a manager, the same one for 6 years. That's very I don't know where he is in the 10 year or the 20 year. You said he's in the 6 year, but that's got to be pretty high.
Well, and for the Twins, they value continuity. I mean, since end of 1986, they've had Tom Kelly, Ron Gardenhire, Paul Molitor, and Rocco Baldelli. Like, that's incredible. Like, the Mets have 4 managers in the span of 4 seasons, or they have the every 6-hour opt-out clause, like we joke about. It's funny how that works. I want to talk about Joe Ryan tinkering, but I think we're going to table that because it's a good discussion, but I think it's a longer form discussion. So a couple news and notes before we get out of here. Mike Zunino announced his retirement. No, he was never a Twin, but have you ever heard the joke on Twitter, this person or this entity has the chance to do the funniest possible thing? Because that was the case if the Twins had ever in the last 2 years landed Mike Zunino for one reason or another. I thought they might grab him when they ended up signing Christian Vasquez. I didn't know they would go that route as far as a starting catcher. So I thought, maybe Mike Zunino as a backup. And the reason why that would be funny is because pick 1 that year, Carlos Correa. Pick 2, Byron Buxton. Pick 3, Mike Zunino. And
the 2012 draft. That's right. Was that a different team, a different front office?
Yeah. So Terry Ryan took over. I think that might have been his first draft back, because the Bill Smith era was fairly short and tumultuous and bad and all those other superlatives. Or what's the opposite of a superlative? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. And actually, I had heard that the Twins had Correa number 1 on their board too. So breaking news from 12 years ago. But yeah, it would have been funny to have the top 3 picks on the same team. Again, I'm sure if that's ever happened before, I wouldn't know it. But yeah, happy trails.
It's a fun and funny bit of trivia, though. Absolutely, yeah. It's neat enough that Correa and Buxton are on the same team.
Right. And so Joe Mauer in 2013 ends up playing his last game at catcher. Zunino debuts in 2013. And so that was a huge, the Twins could have had this guy instead of this dumb old Byron Buxton, who's only in Cedar Rapids. And there was people ticked that I think Michael Wacha was in that draft, and they took Buxton, who didn't make it to the big leagues. Wacha made it to the big leagues early and was, really good to start with Cardinals. It just goes to show kind of how the draft is viewed by people who don't get ball. They don't know ball, to steal a phrase from the Twitter machine.
No, they're apparently Vikings fans.
Yep.
Although
And
isn't how it works in the Twin Cities, where if you like football and you like basketball, you're also a Vikings fan, or you're also a Twins fan. What's with the I don't like you because I'm a Vikings fan and you're a Twins fan? Why would people be? Why does your brain go there?
my brain?
No, the royal you.
I think it's mostly just Vikings fans who are like the salary cap brain, dead money brain, CTE brain, like all that. And it comes down to, it's just a different sport, and you have to understand the nuance. And if you get really hot and heavy and angry about a sport that you don't understand, you look like a moron pretty fast. And I'm being candid here, and I apologize if anybody's offended, but there's a lot of hot takes from Vikings fans that it's like, nah, that ain't it.
Growing up in Chicago, people you tend to like multiple sports. Maybe you have your favorite sport or your favorite team, but Bears fans are White Sox fans, or they're Cubs fans, or they're Bulls and Blackhawks. It's not. Most people aren't negative in that way toward the other sport.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say this. The fan base for the Vikings has something called the VWO. And if it sounds like wrestling, it's because it's based on it. And it's people with, I don't know if you've ever heard of Ragnar, the old mascot, the human mascot. Everybody kind of looks like that, men and women. I'm kidding. But like the VWO is insane. Check it out. That's the kind of fan the Vikings draw. They're hardcore, but they're nuts. So it's a different type of person. But hey, Dave, thank you so much. Make sure you guys check out, we did a Locked On AL Central preview that should be coming out in parts over the next few weeks. But hey, thanks for hanging out on Locked On Twins, and we'll see you tomorrow.